All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to this session of the Dallas Cybersecurity Summit, covering securing the cloud. My name is Mary Balogun, and I'm a security and compliance manager at Match Group. I've been in cybersecurity for over 10 years now. Not to take too much of your time, I would like to welcome the panelists. Thank you for speaking to us today. Can you guys go ahead and kind of give us a quick introduction about yourself and what you're currently up to?
So my name is Jennifer Ayers. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer at DNSFilter. My background and experience has been in cybersecurity for the past 25 years, predominantly in the incident response and threat intelligence space.
Awesome. I guess, Gavin, you can go next.
Hey, I'm Gavin Reed. I'm the CISO for Recorded Future. Recorded Future is probably the most complete cyber threat intelligence company in the world. We provide cyber threat intel across a broad spectrum of customer needs, requirements, and of course, in doing that, we're kind of pissing off the bad guys. We're talking about nation states. We're talking about threat actors, and so we have a very very active day.
Awesome. Jack?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Graziano. I am a solutions architect here at iBoss. iBoss is a security platform that allows for a full zero trust enablement and a full SASE enablement for any enterprise with a single edge to any resource necessary. I've been in the industry for about 25 plus years, and I've done a number of gigs, if you will, around the industry.
Awesome. And then can we have Dan to introduce himself next?
Sure. Hi, Mary. This is Dan Devan. I work as the sales manager for the Western US at AppOmni. AppOmni is a leader in an emerging area, which is SaaS security posture management, monitoring, and detecting. So I've, similar to Jack, I've been at this a long time. I've had many roles in some of the bigger infrastructure on-prem companies early in my career, and I've spent the last dozen plus years in the cloud, mainly focused on content and security. So it's nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. Jasmine, go next.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Henry. I'm Field Security Director at Jupiter One. I have about 10 years leading and scaling security at cloud native startups, and I'm a huge fan of knowledge graphs.
Awesome. Frank?
Hi, my name is Frank Leva. I'm a cybersecurity systems engineer at Radware. I've been in the industry about 15 years, mainly focusing on hacker profiles, web application firewalls, DDoS, and anti-malware.
Awesome. And Jennifer?
I went first.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. Is there anyone else that I missed? Sorry. Did I miss anyone? Let's see.
I think I'm last, Mary.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Yeah, Chris Haas, Director of Information Security and IT here at Automox. Those that aren't familiar with Automox, we're an IT orchestration, cloud configuration, cloud native kind of platform. So we do a lot of things around vulnerability management, patch management, configuration management, all from a cloud native platform. In my past, I've primarily been in the threat intel, malware reverse engineering space. I've held positions as principal threat research engineer at Logarithm and Cylance and a few other places. I've spent some time in the DoD doing some things. But yeah, I've been primarily in the threat intel and research space, and now kind of running all operations here at Automox.
Awesome. This is amazing. I appreciate, again, everyone's time today. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today around securing the cloud. So we can go ahead and begin with the questions. So I'm going to ask Jack and Gavin, should a company that has already made a significant investment into on-prem security still migrate to the cloud? And the second question to that is, what benefit does the cloud adoption offer?
Jack, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. For all companies have some sort of a journey to the cloud, right? Whether they are, 199% premise and 1% cloud, or vice versa. And as they journey to the cloud, they have to think about, their security posture. Some security solutions, think about, when you think about a security solution, you have to think about how that security solution is going to help you with that journey. Can it enable that journey? Will it restrict that journey? You have to think about those terms. In iBoss's case, we help folks manage that journey to the cloud and ensure that their security posture stays the same no matter where their users are, whether they're in the office or working from home. We, with this new work from anywhere model that's out there, you really got to think about those components. And, so the investment in premise-based security components can be made very useful and a good stepping off point into the cloud as well.
Cool. Hey, thanks, Jack. I like the journey versus a tragedy. So that's good, positive. So my perspective is there used to be like a huge divide in capabilities between on-prem and cloud, and that's largely disappeared. And we see cloud capabilities surpassing what we have available on-prem now. And, for example, on-prem, security-wise, you might have to deploy multiple bits of hardware, parse logs, and juggle those logs, getting them to a place for analysis and storage. And in the cloud, you can often do that with a couple of clicks, right? And as so much application delivery is now in the cloud, more and more companies and more and more advancements in security are strictly cloud-based. The on-prem is getting further and further away from cutting edge. So my perspective on this is complexity is the enemy of security. Trying to manage one large enterprise is hard enough, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Trying to do two is a mammoth undertaking, and very few organizations can afford it. So I would say make your organization as homogeneous as possible, and make it a great framework for hanging both policy and control.
Thank you for that. And can I ask the both of you a follow-up question to that? Does it also mean, or does it mean giving up their on-prem security?
Yeah, in my view, you should definitely try and move from A to B. Keeping them both up is just going to be double the security the sort of vulnerability footprint, double the work. You're sort of doubling everything if you're keeping both. So unfortunately, a lot of companies are in this, 1 foot in the, in the data center and 1 foot in the cloud, and they're having to do that right now. And I suggest that for a security perspective, that's a very, very hard and untenable posture to take.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with I agree with Gavin. Simple is best. It's the most secure method. Reality of the situation is that depends on where your users sit and how they're accessing your resources. So if and that unfortunately, as Gavin says, and I agree, is that the journey is to the cloud. So any investment you're making in on-premise technologies is going to be old technology and ultimately not very cost effective.
Thank you very much. That was really great. Thank you. So so hybrid cloud and multi-cloud are common, as it can be tailored to fit an organization's particular needs. So my question is, what are the benefits and challenges between each of them, and how do companies decide which solution is right for them? And Jan, do you mind answering this question for us, Dan and Jack?
I think to kind of, expand a little bit on what Gavin had just kind of talked about in regards to trying to pick one or the other. I think one of the reasons why we continue to see companies needing to operate in sort of the hybrid type of environment is, also there's a huge cost factor to take into consideration. There's costs in many different avenues. Moving completely to cloud is going to incur one type of cost. Keeping things on-prem is another. Maintaining security across both is going to is going to incur yet a third cost. I think we're going to continue to see a multifaceted type of environments as we go. It's not going to be that simple to move things off-prem if in the cloud your storage is ultimately more expensive than what you're going to be paying for on-prem storage, for example. So I think it's really, instead of kind of looking at this as a yes or no, A or B, black or white, it's really about looking at it from many different kind of perspectives. But I will agree 100% with what Gavin says. From a security perspective, it does introduce a lot of new challenges and a lot of new ways to look at things. I will also expand on what Jack said as well. How do people access your stuff? Is it more feasible to maybe retain your storage purely on-prem to save that cost and not allow that accessibility from different directions in your company, forcing them to go through your cloud services to get to that storage ultimately? And there's a lot of different dynamic ways to potentially look at it.
Excellent. Well said. From a hybrid perspective, whether it be hybrid, a combination of on-premise security as well as hybrid cloud, where folks have multiple cloud architectures. It really depends, on where your users sit and how your users are going to access that data. So ensuring that you have a zero trust model, thinking about where your users are and where your resources are going to affect your security posture and your security ideas. As the market goes, the market is putting its efforts into cloud-based security, which means that the latest and greatest technologies are going to be around the cloud journey. So the cloud is in our future. If you aren't already on your way there, you are way behind schedule ultimately.
If I can expand on what you just said, Jack, sorry, Mary, just one more thing. I think the other aspect of this as well is about the security piece of it. Whether you're on-prem, whether you are migrating to the cloud, there's still a basic subset of security that needs to be taken into consideration. And I hope that from a security posture perspective, from a security vendor perspective, that we don't end up in a situation where vendors are not taking all avenues into consideration. There are still a lot of companies out there that are heavily on-prem. There are a lot of companies that are moving to SaaS. There are a lot of the companies that started in SaaS, but there are some basic fundamentals about cloud security that apply to on-prem security as well. Credential, service provider abuse. I mean, everything, a lot of the threat landscape is still inexistent. They may just be using different protocols or different technologies in cloud services, but security still needs to be the number one thought as people begin their migration or start to move into hybrid environments.
Awesome, thank you. So I would like to transition to talking about one of the cloud security risk here, and that's misconfiguration. So we know that misconfiguration continues to be the greatest threat to cloud security as a lead cause of cloud data breaches. So I want to ask Frank, Jasmine, Dan, Chris, and Gavin, what steps should be taken before moving to the cloud, and how do you identify misconfiguration after cloud migration? And you can let me know if you want me to break up the question one at a time.
Frank, do you want to go first?
And I think that I'll just kind of answer both as a single component. So before moving to the cloud, I think having a solid understanding of the applications that you're going to be deploying and in what order you're going to migrate those applications is going to be key. I think that you also need to ensure that the teams that are responsible for rolling out these applications, setting up the configurations and whatnot, understand the risk factors for each of the components that they create. And then once we get to that point, having some type of step-by-step process of, okay, well, what do we do for remediation if something happens, I think is a good way to start before moving into the cloud. Once you start moving into the cloud, or you're now in the cloud at that point, I think that misconfigurations typically will happen in mass because most of this is going to be templatized. Therefore, the misconfiguration happens over a wider space. When you identify things like a misconfiguration, usually the way to fix it or the remediation for that is manual. So having a way to identify something that's misconfigured and have it look across your entire cloud infrastructure is going to be key. And then if it can offer ways to remediate or can continue alerting so that you can ensure that you're fixing all of those security gaps is going to be key.
Yeah, this is Dan. Everyone would let me just jump in on Frank. My answer was pretty much the same. I would just add to it, and I'm sure Frank would have thought of it, is the compliance footing you're on before the move itself, making sure that you're aware of the frameworks that you need to adhere to and making sure your posture is consistent when you get to the to-be state, presumably in the cloud. But I think, Frank, you nailed it. I'm going to nerd out for just a little bit, just because part of my job is to look at SaaS environments in the enterprise. So we run, like many people on this in this meeting are aware, we run these assessments. It's usually a pre-sales activity to just kind of get some idea of where the misconfigurations might be. Now, truth be told, these aren't really like pre-migration conversations, but they really were illuminating. So we're a small company, but we've run several hundred of these assessments. There's three numbers that I'll just offer up as evidence of what and how prevalent and how important these misconfigurations are. The first one is 99% of the time, excuse me, that we're looking at a SaaS environment, we're seeing data at risk solely based on a misconfiguration. The next number is 85. So 85% of the time, and this is kind of a weird one, we see exfiltration tools that are resident near the data that anybody either knowingly or not knowingly could use to get large amounts of presumably important data out of the platform, which is kind of scary. And then the last number, 55% of the time we find in our assessments that there's sensitive data just wide open to the public on the public internet. So there's more numbers. Those are three I'd just offer up as evidence in my corner of the cloud world of where misconfiguration risks are.
That is great data. Speaking of 99%, Gartner has a similar stat, which is that now through 2024, the next 2 years, 99% of cloud security incidents are going to be the fault of the team, preventable due to simple misconfiguration issues. And I kind of want to double click on something that Frank said about identifying misconfigurations and kind of looking at infrastructure holistically, which I think is really important, because I think that when you're dealing with the cloud, a single data point doesn't always tell the full story. Answering a basic seeming question about, is an instance exposed to the internet actually requires kind of a lot of different data points. It can depend on security group rules, subnet routing, whether or not the subnet or VPC has a gateway or a NAT, active status, whether it has a public IP. There's a lot of variables. So I think that organizations, to really understand configurations that present true risk, need the ability to look at assets and relationships to other assets, as well as in relationship to policies and users and findings.
Excellent. Jasmine, building on what you were saying and what Frank started, I would say that you don't identify misconfigurations afterwards. You've got to identify them before, right? The whole platform, if you think of cloud providers with their proprietary panel, virtualizations, OS, and then running on top of that, one of the most complicated bits of software ever written, Kubernetes. There's so many layers you have to get into before application code is run. You have to set up frameworks and templates that allow only correct configs. And you have to do that on the front end. And lastly, we've all seen these major outages that go across multiple companies. The ability for cloud services to fail and to do so catastrophically at mass shows us that we can't wait to ID misconfigurations post-deployment, right? We have to create frameworks that have guardrails and only allow known good. And that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with everything everybody said, and I really like what Dan was talking about on really kind of leveraging, third parties to kind of do an assessment before you take on this kind of initiative. I think it's everybody understands when you're moving something from on-prem to the cloud, it's often not the security team that's performing it. A lot of times it's a group effort between multiple organizations, either security, IT, maybe engineering, you have an SRE group, things like that. They're all kind of working together to make this move and setting these configurations. And it really takes a good handshake of agreeing on what is priority and what is not priority, and making sure that you can reduce your risk as much as possible. And one of the best ways to be able to validate things from a security perspective is third-party assessments, right? It's the same reason why we all do pen testing engagements, the same reason why we do a lot of different things, is being able to validate some of the concerns that security may have, and then also be able to have that plan forward. And like you said, a lot of times with those third-party assessments, you can do they'll suggest things or suggest things like security groups. So that way, if there's a misconfiguration, it automatically remediates those things, right? So even if you haven't identified it ahead of time, then it can also remediate that after you've gotten into maybe AWS is just a single use case, but other cloud platforms also have those types of things. So I think it's really important for you to make sure that you have a good understanding, good way forward throughout for your whole organization, and not just prioritized by security, because sometimes it can be difficult to get people on board.
Thank you for that. So visibility across the entire security infrastructure is critical so that security leaders can effectively monitor, protect, and respond. However, organizations reported that a lack of visibility is one of their top risks, right? So my question is, what can security teams do to overcome fragmentation of numerous platforms and gain visibility to minimize the risk? I know that was a mouthful.
So I think I'll kind of talk on this here. So I think one of the trends lately has been to have a single pane of glass approach to how you manage security. And the thing about having that single pane of glass is that all of your alerting is in one spot. You have multiple tools that do multiple different things. All of the alerting then can be tailored or is already set up to what is probably going to be top of mind or high risk. The problem that tends to happen with something that does everything is that you never get everything at its highest performance. You always have to compromise on one thing or the other when it's a single pane of glass. I think that using multiple products that are best of breed, or multiple products that do the set purpose that they were designed for, and then just ensuring that all of it has some way of doing integration, either third-party integration or integration into each other, or being able to integrate into the cloud services that you're actually using, helps to reduce the feeling that there's multiple application protection products, or reduces the feeling that you have to go through multiple instances. Once it's set up, all of these products work together in unison, and then you define the playbooks that you can use for that. And once those playbooks are defined, then everything's really just automated after that. Misconfigurations can be handled easier. Things that are accessed publicly that should actually be private are identified and remediated faster. And so then not only do you have the proactive approach, but you also have a reactive approach that's fully automated.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
go
you,
ahead
Ken.
and I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, can I just get one person for the sake of time, just one person to give their perspective?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, I'm going to show my OCD here. I go after Frank. He gives great answers, which makes it hard, but I'll go ahead, Mary, and try and give you maybe a little follow-up on that one. I think fragmentation is three-dimensional. You have fragmented visibility into the infrastructure, like your question implied. I would say defragmentation is the operative word. You have to defragment, much like Frank was talking about, your intelligence, get things, decide where you want to manage your security from in one spot, and the fewer places, the better. You should need to defragment the people that are involved. You got to make sure people are in the right chairs, knowing what they should do and when. You need to defragment your technology. There's something ESG says there's over 30%, 37% of the companies I talk to have 100 discrete security tools. You need to burn that down. You need to pick the ones that are working and being used. You need to get rid of the ones that are idle and not being used. And then you need to defragment your processes, and where you can use automation, use it.
Actually, it's good that you mentioned automation, because that was going to be my next question. My question is, can automation help overcome the lack of qualified or knowledgeable staff? And that everyone can answer that question.
I don't
I
think
love
that.
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Go for it. I can go after you.
I think that there is a place for everything. I think automation does lend itself well, especially in the case of, reducing menial, in some cases, some menial tasks that can be done. It can also help from a security space in reducing the opportunity for human error, but automation will never be a replacement for qualified people. I mean, when you take a look at the security space, especially in depth, there is no level of automation that can supply a deep level of threat hunting, for example, or even in some cases, it still takes a person to not just build the automation, but even build in correlations to things. When you're looking at the security landscape, which is effectively driven by other people, at the end of the day, it takes a human to identify other human-based activity. And I know AI is out there, and I know it's getting a lot stronger, but as of right now, there's a lot of inference that still needs to be done by the human mind and by people. And I don't think automation is ever going to eliminate that.
That's really well said. I agree completely. I think that automation can almost be thought of as like a necessity for security teams at this point, in order for security to enable the business to move the speed it needs to. Automation also lends the benefit of, just really being necessary for cloud scale. And there is some evidence that automation can help organizations retain and attract talent, since they're potentially not burning people into the ground quite as much. That said, it's not a replacement for people. It's not a solution to the pipeline issue or the talent mismatch issue. And I think that organizations need to take that into account when they're doing kind of workforce succession planning and similar.
Absolutely. Thank you. I see, Chris, would you like to add your?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Automox is really hyper focused on is automating as much as IT, operations, things that you can possibly do with our platform, right? And we have a few times we've had folks talk about, well, what if it automates me out of my job? Well, first of all, that's never going to be possible. I don't think we'll ever get to the point where automation is going to completely be able to automate somebody out of job, as Jennifer and Jasmine both kind of pointed out, right? It enables people to become more skilled, right? When you're not pigeonholed into doing same remedial tasks over and over again, that allows you to focus on more complex tasks and grow you as a skill set and grow you in your career. And I really think that it's super important for us to really be able to focus on, up-leveling skills and try to close in on this cybersecurity skills gap, right? It's hard for us to maintain those skills when we're stuck doing, basic manual tasks that don't allow us to kind of move upstream in terms of our ability and our level, right? So I think it's incredibly important. I don't see it ever being as a replacement. I really see it really just as an augment to help people be more effective at their job, but never a replacement.
Absolutely. Anyone else would like to add? Gavin?
Sure, yeah, I'll go. So I think what everyone said's been totally spot on. Where automation is helpful is when it makes people more effective and gets rid of some of the rote tasks and lets them concentrate on sort of the higher level tasks. And I'll give you an example. Analysts on my team would spend a large amount of time getting the data ready for analysis, pulling it down from different sources, kind of getting it to the point where they could do that security analysis. And we did an automation project to make sure that any data that they needed, the analysts needed, was right there in front of them before they even started looking at it. And in doing this, what we did is we made better use of the analyst's time. And we used automation to complete those repetitive and automatable tasks. And I think that's exactly where it helps make people work better. It does not replace them.
Thank you very much for that. So Jack, can you kind of share with us some effective ways of educating and training employees in regards to cloud security?
Oh, that's a great question. One of there's the obvious ones, right? Send everybody that crazy email from IT and says you got to go here and take these training courses, and those are foundational, if you will, table stakes when it comes to training folks. But the other one is behavior. When users are reaching out to the internet or reaching out to applications, giving them feedback on their activities is a key element here. Hey, are you sure you want to go there? Is this really important to the business? And is it something that that can be done maybe later or not done at all? These are components that are easily automated and easily integrated into their everyday transactions. And from our perspective, we love the opportunity to be in front of the user and help them get there. And other parts are some other basic functionality, like ensuring that folks don't go to the dirty dozen on the internet or go to places that might be suspect, or accidentally uploading files to places in the world that might be considered nefarious, right? So the tools that are out there should be utilized to the fullest ability, just to help users handle those repetitive even when they're just kind of surfing on automatic, right? Ensure that they're not going to places that they shouldn't go.
Thank you very much, Jack. Can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
So Zero Trust Architect has been a hot topic as organization transition to that model from the traditional perimeter security model. So my question is, how do companies successfully implement Zero Trust for the cloud environment, and how does doing so help secure the cloud environment?
I think the very first thing that a company has to do is understand what Zero Trust really is. There's a lot of noise out there around Zero Trust, and there's a lot of marketing around Zero Trust, and there's a lot of massaging the message. The true message around Zero Trust comes actually out of NIST. NIST has a document called NIST 800-207, which is a foundational document around Zero Trust. It actually explains everything when it comes, well, not everything, but it actually explains what is necessary to achieve a Zero Trust model and ensure that users and companies are following that model. Then the second piece is to implement tools that help you achieve that model. So those tools are readily available out there and easily configured and set up for customers and users to help get those things done. In the case of iBoss, we sit there, we live in the Zero Trust world. To us, it's our mantra. It is how we help customers achieve that role and that goal, and to ensure that the posture, customers, company security posture, and user security hygiene is expected and operating the way a company would like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Chris, I would like to ask about choosing a cloud solution provider, right? How do companies ensure that they're choosing the right type? And is security the responsibility of the provider?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good idea to kind of just follow the shared responsibility model on what things, what security things are your responsibility and the responsibility of the security provider. But I think that's one. There's a lot of talk about compliance not equaling security, but I mean that's one of the most useful tools for you to identify when you're evaluating a cloud platform or a cloud provider. Is what kind of certifications do they have? What's their security posture like? Having a security questionnaire that you send over to a cloud native provider on their security practices. Just in general, reaching out to the head of their security team and having conversation on how they would even just respond to you in cases of a breach, right? Like just basic questions that you'll need to have, and just doing your due diligence when bringing on a vendor, and being able to just make sure that they're meeting your own standards, right? And then when you go to evaluate a product, make sure you're taking a critical security approach when you're evaluating a product, right? If there's a security feature that's missing, then make sure you suggest it. A lot of times, SaaS companies are agile and usually push out features pretty quickly. If they feel that there's a security need, then a lot of times they can bake that into their product going forward, right? So just being a really active partner in any of the solutions that you're kind of evaluating, I think is really important for you to increase your security posture for sure.
Awesome. And Jack, would you like to add some points to that?
Excellent. Yeah, hey, Chris, those were great components, and foundationally, as long as you know what your end goal is, it becomes the component to help pick those right architectures. In my experience, in my job, the first thing I always ask customers is, what are your use cases, and how do you, what is those? Even some of the ones that are most basic, but even some of the dream use cases, what are those things when you want to reach out and do some of the extraordinary use cases? Knowing those use cases up front is going to help you choose and define your security, your zero trust future, ultimately.
Thank you so much, Jack. This has been a great conversation, and lovely to meet everyone, each and every one of you. Do you mind, everyone just go around and kind of share your closing remarks, additional points that you like to add? And we can start with, and Jack, since you just spoke.
Thank you. Hey, thank you all. I enjoyed this conversation. It's nice to meet you all. My only closing comment would be, don't be afraid to think through things. Don't move so fast that you're missing the obvious, and make sure that you do the basics first, because that foundation is what you're going to be building your security posture on. And as my father once told me, a house with a poor foundation is always going to fall down. Same object for your security posture.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
I would agree with Jack. Very nice to meet all of you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk, and same on the parting words, right? I mean, I think that the foundation analogy is very strong. Don't forget the basics. Don't walk in and just expect that everything is going to automatically be done. Double check, triple check, and make sure that before you deploy, it's tightened down.
Absolutely. And Jasmine?
Grateful to be here. I feel like when, looking at the future of security, there's a lot that's going to need to be reinvented to reach cloud scale. And I feel like smart folks like this group of people today really give me hope for the future.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Dan,
Yeah, I'll just build on what Jasmine said. I was just thinking, I think about it, probably not enough, but a lot. We're lucky to be in this industry because it's really super interesting, and it's just a great space to be in. So my parting remarks would be, and these are challenges for myself, is always continue to be a student. I've been at this a while, but the more I learn and try and look at new things, the more my assumptions are incorrect about the way things used to be. So it's, the journey to the cloud's been going on a long time, but everything's changing so fast that we owe it to ourselves to be students while we're, moving on through our careers. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you. Chris?
I think that's a great point. I think you have to be a student forever for it to be successful in cybersecurity, right? Everything changes. And to kind of piggyback on what Jennifer and Jack were saying, is the basics are extremely important. The one good thing about the basics of cybersecurity is they don't really change that often, right? Least privilege, password complexity, those types of things that will set you up for a good foundation moving forward as you transition into this journey haven't changed that much. And I think if we all did a better job of doing the basics, then we'd be in a more secure world now. So Yeah, it can be very complex. Don't get down if you feel like you're falling behind. Like you said, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. But yeah, those basics will really set you on a good path forward.
Very great advice, Chris. Frank, you can go next.
Yeah, this has been a great talk. I just want to touch on something that Jennifer said earlier. She had mentioned a security report. I think it's very important to read security reports to understand what the risk factors are going into the future. There's tons of them out there, but like in 2020, stolen credentials were the big thing. In 2021, it was services that were exposed to the internet. By 2023, it'll be inadequate management, identities, access privileges, and then, as Jennifer said, by 2023, almost all of the cloud security failures will be due to the customers and not necessarily the cloud itself. I think understanding where you are truthfully with your team and where you need to go to is a really good mindset and approach. I think that all of us here may, at the end of the day, approach security different in terms of what we would deploy or how we would deploy it. But at the end of the day, I think all of us had the exact same theme, that the concept of how to handle security is the same. So understanding that and kind of learning from your peers and understanding what everyone is doing is a good approach to start either moving into cloud security or increasing or making a more robust cloud security presence for yourself.
Awesome. And Gavin.
Mary, thanks for moderating. Thanks to all the panelists. Very interesting discussion. The one thing I'd like to leave people with, and we talked about it briefly, is that mutual responsibility. Be real crisp and understand what you're responsible for and what your cloud provider is responsible for. As I've talked with other folks that are, doing their journey into cloud, there's often some assumptions and misunderstandings about exactly where that line is. So be super crisp on that. And thanks, everyone.
Awesome. This has been a wonderful conversation. I just want to say I appreciate everyone's time once again. Thank you for listening in to this panel on securing the cloud. So I just wanted to let everyone know, if you have any questions for any of the panelists today, go ahead and follow up with them in their booth. So we are signing out. Thank you again. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks all.